It's just so ironic that, well, we'll release the criminals from the jails because we want to minimize the interaction, and we don't want people in our jails because of the coronavirus, but yet we'll treat the everyday citizen as if you're in jail almost. And I'm not minimizing the coronavirus threat or suggesting that somehow we should not all be working to stay at home as much as possible. But there's just some crazy stories out there. This one was from Missoula, and apparently it was a car dealer who is considered an essential business because people need transportation. They put up some balloons, and apparently the city of Missoula went after them. But so I see this story, and I was like, I got to verify this. So I go to Jesse Ramos. I said, hey, Jesse, have you heard about this? Anyway, Missoula City Councilman Jesse Ramos now with us here to kick off our show this morning. Yeah, Jesse, are you telling me that this is actually a priority for the city of Missoula? That story had to be fake, right?
Unfortunately, it's not, Aaron. The city of Missoula actually, in addition to all the other egregious things that you've mentioned about criminals being let out of jail and some other things with other elected officials, the city of Missoula actually sent a letter to landlords a couple weeks ago with only myself and another conservative gal on the council, Sandy Vasica, not signing on to it, asking landlords to forgive rent. So they're asking landlords to forgive rent, but I don't see any pause in property taxes or water fees or sewer fees. And on top of that, they're telling businesses that they can't even advertise to try and get customers in there to pay the dang mortgage or pay the lease on other properties that they might own where tenants are being told not to pay the rent. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And he was going to be fined $500 a day for having those balloons up because it was in violation of the sign ordinance, which in my opinion is unconstitutional in the first place because it infringes on his private property rights. I mean, private property rights basically don't exist anymore in Missoula.
That is outrageous on a number of fronts. Yeah, first off, a car dealer puts some balloons out to say, hey, we're open for business. Because, look, when people buy cars, that drives a lot of the local economy, especially that's why we encourage people to buy here in Montana. So they put out some balloons saying we're open for business. The city of Missoula has time to release criminals from jail, but obviously it's a county detention facility. But anyway, they got time to do that in places like Missoula. But then they'll go after a business owner for putting some balloons out. Unbelievable.
It's really sad, and unfortunately, it's not surprising at all at this point. I mean, the city council isn't really showing any leadership in this regard at all. And they're all for the sign ordinance. We've actually tightened up the sign ordinance in recent years. And again, it's on his private property. It is not any of the city's business what somebody does or doesn't do when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, let alone when we are in the middle of a pandemic. And it's also worth noting that everybody in the city, every city employee, they're still getting paid by this guy's property taxes, yet they're telling him that he can't earn the business that he needs to pay these property taxes. So they're not following it all the way through either. And in my opinion, Aaron, compliance is the most corrupt industry on the face of the planet, where you actually have an industry that's purpose is not to create value, but its purpose is to enforce laws created by bureaucrats to raise revenue for their own jobs. So it's a really predatory business, and we're seeing it unfold right now more than ever.
Well, and you make a great point, too, about, okay, here's all these homeowners, here's all these business owners who have constantly been paying more and more and more in property taxes. And I remember there were families that lived in a mobile home park there in Missoula, 300 different homes, and they were afraid of losing their homes, not because of evil landlords, but because of taxes in Missoula. But, they're not giving those folks a break on taxes right now, are they?
No, absolutely they are not. We are a prime example of do what we say, not as we do, because, like I said, at the same time that we're telling people, telling landlords to forgive tenants' rent, we're the city council. We have every authority to tell people, hey, you don't need to pay your rents right now, or you don't need to pay your property taxes right now, but we know that that's not economically viable because our police still need to get paid, our firemen need to get paid. Obviously, we could cut a lot of fat out of the budget, but every time I've tried to bring that up, they laugh in my face. So at the end of the day, they don't understand basic economics and the domino effect of all these idiotic platitudes that they put out there saying, like, this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to virtue signal by saying, I think that we need to tell people, since we're the city council, we're the example of moral purity and goodness, that we need to tell these businesses what the right thing is to do. Come on, give me a break. A bunch of bureaucrats in their ivory towers are going to tell people we need them to tell us what's the right thing to do. If landlords can afford to, they'll certainly work with tenants without the bureaucrats on city council telling them to.
Wow. Well said. Well, Jesse Ramos, thanks for what you do, for standing up for folks there in Missoula, and for sounding the horn statewide with us here on Montana Talk. City Councilman Jesse Ramos, great to have you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.